Indie Entrepreneur Hangout. This time we've got the story of Bill Belew, who's going to talk about how he's created an online community over 6,600 members. But before we get into that, Bill, if you would, for some of the folks who don't really know you and what you do and stuff like that and what you're about, maybe you can share a little bit about, just your basic story.
My basic story was, you have to be careful. You're going to have to stop me from rambling, because the older you are, the longer the story is.
Yeah, I hear you.
I guess the question is where would I start? I was born. I grew up in the Midwest. Spent the first 20 years of my life in Ohio, and then I joined the Navy. And then I spent the next 20 years in Japan, in Asia, and then left Japan, came back to California, and I've been here for the last 20 years.
Right.
So it's not exactly 20, but it's about that. And so I've been in California for almost 15, 16 years now.
And that's the heart of the Silicon Valley with your family, right?
Yes, sir. I live right in the very heart of Silicon Valley. If you did some research on Wikipedia or wherever, where was Silicon Valley born, they would put a pin on the map in Sunnyvale, California, on Murphy Street, and I live right at the corner of Murphy and Arquez. So I'm about a mile and a half from Yahoo headquarters in one direction. If you go to Yahoo, turn left and go another 3 miles, there's Google. If I turn around and go the other way 3 miles, there's Apple headquarters. If I stay on the road toward Google and go another 4 miles, there's Facebook headquarters. From my house, I can throw a rock and hit LinkedIn's headquarters. Now, I have to throw very hard, but it's only about 400 or 500 yards from my house. We go to the grocery store, and when I buy milk, there's the catty corner from the grocery store where I go is LinkedIn's new digs. And I live right in the middle of all that. So what that means is my mortgage is really high.
Yeah, I was going to say it's definitely some prime real estate there. And so I imagine that was part of your motivation of finding another way to earn a living other than just a job, which a lot of times really can't afford, the basic cost of living in Silicon Valley.
Well, see, that's the thing. So, well, back up just a little bit. Since LinkedIn just built their new headquarters, literally 400 or 500 yards from my house, they have given Sunnyvale a grant to clean up our neighborhood. And so they're just sprucing up the whole wide place. And what that means is the mortgage value goes up.
Right.
It doesn't matter how high your mortgage is unless you sell your house. And if I sold my house, I couldn't afford to buy anything anywhere else. So I'd be out on the street. So, we live in very good areas. It's not very high end. It just happens to be a very good location where somebody moved in, that sort of thing. But
definitely.
One of the biggest challenges, I saw your question. One of the biggest challenges here is, I write for a living, and no matter what industry you're in, writers don't make a lot of money. They just don't. I mean, I'm not a Richard Castle. I'm a Castle fan, and I'm not a Harry Potter. The people who literally make money off of writing is such a tiny percentage, because it just takes so much to add up. And so trying to make a living as a writer here in Silicon Valley has by far been the biggest challenge I've faced.
Right. So what was it that started you off on your journey, though? Like, in other words, what was the your call to action that basically prompt you to kind of do something else, besides trying to just like most folks, which is get a job or become an engineer? Or what was it that kind of made you realize that you need to kind of try to do something else?
Well, I'm far too stubborn to work for somebody else. So when I lived in Japan, I was in the Navy. I got married to a Japanese girl. We left the Navy, settled in her hometown, and it was just it was just a case of find a need and fill it. And so I'm sitting there at her house. I look around. There's a whole lot of people who can't speak English. They want to speak English. I said, well, gosh, I could do that. And so I sat down on the kitchen table and created a little poster, stuck it up on the telephone pole. People started coming. And so I created, from there, I built a language school. And so ever since that time, ever since I left the Navy, I worked for myself. My father worked for himself. It just, I didn't intend to work for myself. I just did. And it wasn't like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to be a solopreneur. Those words didn't exist when I started off. I just said, gosh, I'm going to live here in Japan. I got to eat. What am I going to do? Well, these people need that. I could do that. Maybe they'll pay me for it. And so I did. And And so that school grew. We ended up having several thousand students we taught each week. They would come to my school, or we would farm ourselves out to city offices or high schools and all that sort of thing. And so we just kind of, built the school. So I've always worked for myself. Not because that's what I wanted to do with my life. It's just the way things work. And it never, and I say this a lot, it never occurred to me that I could go to work for somebody else.
Right.
I mean, people do that all the time, but it didn't happen. It didn't enter my mindset. I just thought, well, I got to make a living. I better go do something.
Well, along the way, though, I'm kind of curious whether there were folks who influenced you or encouraged you. I mean, sometimes, like entrepreneurs may have, like idols they look up to and stuff. But I mean, a lot of times also there's like maybe somebody who just along the way, like kind of just simply maybe asked you a question or pointed you in the direction and stuff like that. Was there some other folks who influenced you?
Well, this is going to sound very sappy by the time I get done answering this question. And the answer to the question is no. I've never had a mentor. And that's, I don't know why that is. Maybe I'm just not maybe I'm not malleable enough or something. But when I went to Japan back in, it was 82, 83 or something like that. And when I left the Navy, I went over as a sort of missionary kind of a thing. So I'm a missionary on one hand and teaching English on the other hand. So in order to live there, I had to teach. So I taught so that I could do missionary work. But one of the things I was probably 26, 27 years old at the time. And so I wrote a letter. Remember when people used to write letters on paper and they took stamps out and licked them and mailed them? And so I wrote a letter to 34 or 35 different missionary couples who had been in Japan for 30 years or longer. So I thought these guys had been around a very long time. They came in their 20s and now they're in their late 50s, maybe 60s. And so I wrote by hand to each one of these people. You couldn't cut and paste back then because there wasn't no such. So I wrote to every single one of them, mailed these letters out and say, listen, I've never been to Japan before. I don't know anything. Could I ask you questions? Would you please, I didn't use the word mentor, I think, but would you be my sounding board, or could I reach out to you when I have problems, and would you help me understand things? Every single one of them wrote back to me and said no.
Wow. And
I thought, what? I was stunned. I said, these are nice people. They're missionaries. They're supposed to love people.
Right.
And, there might be a bit of exaggeration. There might have been some people who didn't write back, but every answer I got back was no. And now I remember it as everybody said no. So, I don't want to lie or think. But the point was, everybody said no. So, well, okay, then I'll just do it myself. And so from that point on, I just decided I'm going to do everything myself. And I'm not proud of this. It's kind of like, proud and not proud at the same time. 100% of the things I've done is things I thought I should do because I didn't have anybody to tell me what to do. And so when I lived in Japan, I'd get in the car, we'd go to the city office. There'd never been a foreigner who lived in that city before. And so, Tokyo, big cities, there were foreigners there, but where I lived, there'd never been a foreigner. Every time I went into the city office to renew a card or a registration, they had to get the book out and read up what they were supposed to do. It was literally trailblazing. I spent my life being the first person to do so many things that I've done, and I never knew who to ask. And when the people I did ask didn't know or they wouldn't answer me. So that's a long answer to a short question. No, I've never had anybody help me. And my dad, I love my dad. My dad loves me, but I'm the third boy out of three, and he just didn't have time. It didn't occur to me that, I'm a third boy, nobody loves me. It's just the way it is. I have three sisters. I have two brothers. I'm the fifth of six children. And when it was my turn, there was no turn. Again, you can stop me from talking anytime you want, but I remember how I learned to ride a bicycle. Now I was 6 years old. All my friends were riding bicycles, and nobody would teach me. I can vividly see in my mind now. I close my eyes, I could see the very moment. I'm thinking, nobody's going to teach me how to do this. So I went and got my own bicycle. I took the training wheels off. I went to the nearest hill, and I went up as far the hill as I could go without being afraid. And so I straddled the bicycle, and I just let myself coast. And I think, here I go. Oh, this is how you do it. And I started pedaling. And then I didn't know how to stop. I had no idea what to do to stop. And I did, oh, bam! I ran into a telephone pole, and that's how I learned how to ride a bicycle. And from that moment on, I just, I didn't feel sorry for myself, although it sounds like it. I just never had anybody teach me how to do things. I just learned how to do through school of hard knocks.
Well, I mean, that's probably a good metaphor for your work online, though, because, just like, the riding the bike and stuff like that, you really taught you're self-taught in terms of, your work online. So what led to that transition, though, from what you were doing in Japan, teaching and stuff, to working online?
So I left Japan. I came back here I ended up back in Silicon Valley. There's a few steps along the way. It's not that interesting. But I ended up back here in Silicon Valley. And so I thought, well, I was probably 50, late 40s, late 40s, early 50s. I'm going to go teach university. I'm going to hire myself out. I'm going to teach at the university. I'll get a full-time job. I have a PhD education. So I'm going to teach. And then I'm going to write books and live happily ever after. Now, that's just fun. And so I did. I got a job at a university. They hired me full-time. And I was just writing just for the fun of it. I thought, this is going to be fun. I have benefits. I got a wife. I'm remarried. Off we go. And the school got a new president. And for whatever reason, he didn't like me. I'm not unlikable. I mean, I'm gruffy now, but back then I was a nice guy. And so he just fired me. He fired me for no good reason. What's going on here? Well, the department chair, I was just a lowly peon teacher, but the department chair went to the president and said, "What are you, nuts? You can't fire Bill." It was a for-profit school. They had interior, they had IT, and they had fashion design, interior design, a bunch of these things. But then they had a bunch of general education classes, speech and psychology and essay writing. And I taught all of those classes because nobody else knew how to do it. And so I taught all the general education classes, arithmetic and psychology, all environmental science. And I taught those classes, and I taught at the times that nobody else wanted. They had classes 8 o'clock on Friday night. Nobody wants to teach that. Well, I don't care. I'll do it. It didn't matter to me. My wife and I, we didn't have kids. It didn't matter. She and I could do something some other time. So when he fired me, there was a big hole in the curriculum for nobody to teach. So this has been my strategy, if you call it. I would always do what nobody else wanted to do. So that when I was not there was nobody else to do it. Does that make sense? So I would always take the time slot nobody wants, and I would take the subject nobody wants. I would do anything nobody else wants to do, so that when I was gone, we need Bill back. So the guy fired me. There was this big hole. The department chair said, "You can't fire Bill. We need him." To the president. The president called me up to his office. I go into his office. He said, "I've been thinking. Okay, never mind, Bill. I decided I would keep you on staff." And I go, "That's good." I said, "Thank you for that." I quit. And I quit right there. I said, "I'm not going to stay here. I'm not going to let you decide my future. I will decide my future." And so I left his office that moment. I just quit the job, and I didn't know what to do. So I went home. I got online. There was a forum of sorts. They didn't call them forums at the time. I don't know what it was. Just kind of like a bulletin board kind of a thing.
Yeah, that was big.
And so I got back into this little bulletin board, and we're just going back and forth. And this guy said, there's a network over here, and they're looking for writers. It's a business network. They're looking for people who know marketing, who know whatever, and they don't have anybody who knows anything about international business. Well, I lived in Asia for 20 years. I knew about that. I created a company in Asia. I could do things in Japanese. I don't know how to do English. The short story, I went to that network online, and I pitched the idea. I can write about Japan. I can write about Asia for you. And they took it. So I started writing. And I didn't know nothing. I just wrote. They paid me $7 per article, and they gave me an upper limit of 150 articles. So 7 times 150, $1,050. So if I wrote 150 articles a month, I could make $1,000. But that wasn't enough to live off of.
Right.
But I just kept writing, and I farmed myself out. I hired myself out for $40 an hour to teach, whatever class, and then they said, "Well, look at this. Bill's getting traffic. Let's give him another topic." They said, "What else do you know?" I said, "Well, I lived in Japan. I can write about Asia, and I can write about just Japan." And so they gave me another 150 articles. So 300 times 7, that's $2,000. Still good. I could pay the rent and I could eat, but that's still not enough. And so Asia worked, and then Japan article, the Japan website worked. And then they said, what else do you know? Well, I can write about education. So they gave me an upper limit of 450 articles. Yeah, so 450 times 7, I'm close to $3,000. It's low edge, but I could survive. I could survive in Silicon Valley on a $800 for my apartment, and $3,000 and $500 for a car payment or whatever. I could survive. I could write, and I could survive. Now there's more to that story, but the more I wrote, the more people came, and the less I had to farm myself out.
Right.
And so I would farm myself out while I wrote, and then while my website grew, while my traffic grew, I stopped teaching less, and I just focused more on writing online. And I watched that grow. And so in the process of looking for stuff to write about, I would find things. And then there was no SEO, there was no content marketing, there was no storytelling, there was none of that nonsense. I just sat down and thought real hard, well, if this is how I'm finding that, that's probably how people are thinking when they come to find me. Does that make sense? So I just thought, well, this is the process I go through to find stuff. Well, there's somebody sitting around trying to go through the same process, so I better write so they can find me. And that was it. And so I just started thinking, how to write stuff so that people could find me, and I made it work. Oh, there's my daughter. Hang on.
Okay. And in case you're just tuning in, again, we have Bill Belew who's sharing his story about basically going from how he started working online from basically nothing to now he's built an online community of content creators of over 600. And we're just working up to that story now. Bill right now is just, again, talking about how he's got started with content creation at a time when things like content marketing and SEO and all those were just really not as well known and stuff. And Bill, so as you got started,
old-fashioned blogging is what I was doing.
Right, but as you started, and like you said, that you were just simply answering questions the way you felt people were going to ask them stuff. I guess at a certain point, people started to ask you how to do it. So in other words, you said you kind of stopped teaching for a while, but then it seems like after a while, people were asking you to teach them how to do what you were doing, right?
Well, see, I can say, without blowing smoke, that I've accumulated well over 100 million unique visitors to my network of sites. Now, I hired writers, and they wrote, and they got the traffic. They said, Bill, you didn't do it, so I don't care. I taught them how to do it. So that, and they were working for me. I taught them how to do it, and it came. So, but, so 100 million organic visits that I never paid for, people just searched and found me. Well, invariably, people are going to pop up and say, well, how did you do that? And so they did. They popped up. How did you do that? So I had no intention of going back to the classroom. But when people say, how did you do that? And I love to teach anyway. And so I kind of got dragged back in. Now they call it consulting. It's the same thing. I got dragged back into teaching people how to do that. And so I travel. My websites suffer somewhat, but they still do all right. I don't get 1 million people a month like I used to because I'm in a harder niche. That's okay. But now I travel the world teaching people how to do that. I've been to Shanghai a couple of times this year. I'll go back in November to Beijing and so on and so on. And then I have a class I teach here. I have meetups that I teach here. And so, back into teaching again. So but I'm sorry. Oh, okay. I teach on my own terms. So I'm back to working for myself again. There's nobody going to fire me. That's just my wife.
Right. I think that's definitely one of the key things is that when you take that control of your, work and stuff, then that way you make the decisions and stuff. So as you've done this, then what would you say though, like has been like your biggest challenges? So like in other words, you had this initial kind of, firing and stuff like that. And then you had to learn these different things on your own. What would you say though beyond that were like some of the challenges you really faced that like nobody really knows about?
Well, the biggest challenge I faced, gosh, that's a tough one, but I never knew what I was doing. I didn't know who to ask.
Right.
And there's always self-proclaimed gurus, but when you look at them and you say, okay, let me see what you actually did, the substance wasn't there. And so there's all sorts of times when I figured things out. I mean, my very best day was like 560,000 people in one day. That's a big number. We had 4,000 people a second come. Here they came. But and I've done that a bunch of times. Not like 2 or 3 or 5, but more times than I can. And every time I thought I figured out how to do something, something would change. And then it wouldn't work anymore. And I'm thinking, oh. And so then you realize that you're working for Google, you're working for Yahoo, you're working for the search engines. And that wasn't any fun. Because when you're at the mercy of somebody else, you're at their mercy. And then when they manipulate things. So that has been a really big challenge. But I think the biggest challenge I have here is that, we were talking before we started recording, is when you work as a writer, you never work for a lot of money. You just can't make big money. I've done big money in a month, but it's not sustainable because something changes. And so to try and make a living as a writer here in Silicon Valley, there's always a sort of desperation kind of feeling. How am I going to survive? And so, and you can't work 24/7, but you feel like, if I don't work 24/7 as a writer, how am I going to survive here where, people are paying outrageous sums for little tiny houses and that sort of thing. So it's just living with that day in and day out. If this doesn't work, am I going to survive? And I'm at the mercy of people who are going to change things around me. That's that uncertainty.
I think that's the thing that I find with not just writers but also creative entrepreneurs in general. And what I call creative entrepreneurs involves folks like writers, but also even like filmmakers, musicians, and stuff. And it's similar, even like when I was involved with the Argentine tango community, that like most teachers don't make a whole lot of money, teaching classes. What they would make most of the money is when they taught workshops, especially if they went outside the area.
Right.
Or other times when they taught privates, so that's like consulting, so in other words, even in these other I guess knowledge sharing fields and stuff, like like I talk about dancers and stuff, but also even for if you look at musicians and stuff, I mean, their knowledge is their music, and like they have a hard time making much money from selling CDs and stuff like that. And usually the money is when they sell concert tickets and stuff, or T-shirts, or I think maybe for writers then it's like the money is like when you teach at an event, or that somebody hires you as a consultant and stuff. So it's interesting how for these different fields it still comes down to like some ways packaging, if you will, your knowledge and your expertise.
Well, along those same lines is when you're able to generate a significant amount of traffic, it will perform for you for a very long time.
Right.
That thing they call the long tail. So if you can create an online presence that's organically searchable, it will give you residual income depending on how you created it. You might be selling a product, you might be selling somebody else's product, you might be selling a service. But when you build something and you build it on your website and you build it and it belongs to you and you do it really well, you'll get found, and that effort will perform for a very long time. And so that's the beauty there. It's
the residual effect.
It's still not huge amounts of money, but it can be.
Right. So shifting gears a little bit, as you've shared your knowledge and I guess at some point you decided that you wanted to build a community around this then. So, like getting down to the heart of what we've wanted to talk with you about. So what led you to building your forum, and what's kind of, can you share a little bit about the story of how that idea started and, what it has led to?
Sure, that's fun to say. So it's forumname.com, forumbillbelew.com. And I use my name not because I'm vain, but because that's my name, right? And then if 90 million people know your name, you want to keep using it, right? So I just, that's why I use it. I don't brand something else. And so, I heard the word tribe. I heard the word community, and I heard the word, forum. And this is the absolute, honest to goodness truth. I never in my life ever participated in a forum until I created my own. I've never gone to forum.anything. I probably went to Reddit, which is kind of a forum, but they're a bunch of trolls. I hope they're reading this because I don't like them. And so that's probably as close as I ever got to participating in a forum. And so I had no idea what it really meant. I mean, in concept, I kind of got it, but I understood the idea of tribe. I understood the idea of community and all that sort of thing. And so, and I also understood the idea of getting people to create content for you. The user generated content, and UGC, the user generated content. That those words probably had passed in front of me at some point. A community of people around you, building stuff that's good, solid on your behalf, and having a tribe of people. So I wonder how hard that is to do. Now, nobody said, Bill, why don't you try that? I'm just sitting here, I'm just sitting here bored or something. I said, I wonder how hard that is to do. Well, I'm going to try. So I have a friend, his name's Tyler. He has the largest forum in the world devoted to bald people, head shavers. He happens to be a head shaver. He tries to teach people how to deal with this in real life so they don't paint their head black and go off and do stupid things. And so Tyler and I were kind of buddies. I saw him, look at that. He's got that forum, all these bald people. So that might have been a little bit of an impetus, but he never said, Bill, why don't you do that? I'm just thinking, I can see somebody who has people building stuff around him. I thought, man, I wonder how hard that is to do. And so I just went looking for forum software. And I thought, I'm gonna put my head down, see if I can do this. And more or less on a whim, that I thought, well, I'm gonna see if I can't build a forum. One last reason, I get asked the same questions a lot. Well, if I built a forum, I wouldn't have to answer the question so many times. I could just answer it there, and people would come and see that. So it's kind of an altruistic kind of a thing. I just wanted to build something where I could answer questions less often, and I wanted to face the challenge personally of trying to build a tribe, and I wanted to say, well, I wanted to know firsthand the answer to how hard is that to do. And so I just put my head down. I'm going to see if I can do that, see what it takes. And by golly, I built this tribe. Now people come to me and say, Bill, how did you do that? I'm serious. Like, here you are asking me this. Well, now people actually pay me to teach them how to do that.
Right.
Because one of the things I've been able to do over time is, for some good reason or bad reason, I keep a record of how long it takes me to do stuff. Old-fashioned Excel style. So I know how many words I wrote, I know how many posts I've got, I know how many days things take. And those are great numbers to know.
So speaking of which, so you're up to over 6,600 members now, and then when did you start again, the forum?
I started May 21st of last year. So it's about 15 months, almost 16 months old, a little bit over a year. So May 21st of 2014, I've had more than 7,000 users.
Okay.
Now, see, that's not members. I wish I had 7,000 members. Yeah, that'd be cool, but because there's such a small percentage of people who are active, you know that.
Right.
So if I only had something like 1% of people who are members are active, and then you have 10% of people who will participate from time to time, and then 90% of people just watch. So it's barely 1 to 2% of people who will create something, barely 10% of people who will interact with it, and another 90% who just read it. So if I had 7,000, 2% of that would be 140 people or whatever.
Right.
I'd like to have that. So no, I don't have, but I had 7,000 users. And those 7,000 people have come about 30,000 times.
Wow.
So I can look at Google Analytics and I see this, so a lot of those people come back. So 7,000 people came 30,000 times. So a lot of people come more than once. And we passed 100,000 page views about a week or so ago.
So you mentioned something before we started about a
Yeah.
milestone. Was that the milestone you were talking about?
No, no, that's not the milestone I was talking about at all. The milestone I was talking about today, a couple hours ago, I got my 1,000th member.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Congrats.
1,000th member. So this is a person who opted in. So here's my email address. I want to get updates every time this forum changes, and maybe
Okay.
I'll jump into it. So now I have 1,000. Now I have 1,007. I passed 7 today.
Okay.
1,007 members.
Awesome.
So
What would you,
there's
what
another
would you,
question. Yeah, there's a second question there.
oh, I was going to say though that so what would you say though, like in so far, between the forum and the different work you've done online has been your proudest achievement?
I know. I gave you a second question. You have to ask. You have to ask me that. You forgot the second question.
Second
The second
question.
question was, what happens when you hit a milestone like that?
Oh, right.
Right. So when you get 1,000 members, or when you get 10,000 people come to your website in 1 hour, or when you reach 1 million unique visitors, and when you hit a huge milestone like that, what happens? That's the question.
Mm.
And the answer to that is nothing. It's just a number. And so the numbers just keep going. So, people say, oh, if I could just get 1,000, or if I could just get 100,000, if I could just get 50 people, oh, if I could just reach this certain number.
Right.
But I've hit so many different numbers at so many different times and so many different intervals. And the answer to that question is, when you hit that number, nothing happens. It's just a number.
Right.
The
Yeah,
verbiage change. Go ahead.
I think that's like that for so many things though, like where it's especially in business, we tend to focus on numbers because that's something that we can make more tangible, like what it is that like is an accomplishment or something. Whereas I think for the most part we realize that like when we really help somebody, or that like we see them appreciative of what we do, so like that's like that intangible is what we really value in a way. But at the same time though, like again, the business brain, or the monkey brain, if you will, feels we need these numbers to kind of like feel like like
Well,
we've
we
done
want to be
something
able
and
to
stuff.
quantify how important we are. We have to be able to quantify how
Right.
successful we are.
Right.
And I like numbers. I'm a number nut. But the truth of it is, when you reach hitting certain numbers, nothing really changes. The verbiage changes. You can say, I almost have 1,000 members. Now I can say I have 1,000 plus members. I have over 1,000. They don't how much over 1,000. But that doesn't really change anything. They're just bragging rights. But bragging rights doesn't get you anything if it doesn't perform.
Well, I mean, it's a part of the whole thing with what's called social proof or whatever. Like numbers tends to influence that. Like if somebody sees that like
Right.
there's 1,000 members, they tend to go, oh, maybe there's something to this forum and stuff. It just on the other side of it, I think it does have rub off in a good way. So maybe nothing immediate will change, but at the other hand, there's something to how people will more people that maybe that were sitting on the sidelines, or somebody else that may have like kind of not thought as much about it.
Of course, I throw those numbers at people all the time. You bet I do. I have 12,000 threads. I have 100. I have 12,000 posts. 100. I throw the numbers at people all the time. So, for example, if you go to my Twitter, you'll see I got this many members. I got this many threads. I got this many page views. And I asked the question. I said there must be something everybody's talking about. It's like, look how many numbers there are. There must be something there. So people can. So I use those numbers. Of course you do, but it really doesn't change your life. They're just bragging rights, and so
right. So in terms of for yourself though, like what would you say is like the next level of success look like to you? What would that be like for you to reach that on a personal level?
All right, so we skipped the question, your proudest moment. I'm looking at your list here, so
Oh, okay.
I got you off topic. Yeah, I got you off topic. See,
no
that I brought you back to that. That's really hard answer. I like these are great questions, by the way. But the proudest moment, say, gosh, you mentioned that before. When we see people that we teach succeed, that's really fun. So what, I can do it, and I've done it again and again. But if I can teach other people how to do it, that's really cool. But if I can teach other people how to, and I have done that, and if I can teach other people how to teach other people, that's what's really cool. So I can do it. I showed other people how to do it. Oh, he did it now, or she did it. Okay, now you teach somebody else. And they went off and taught. So I've had people come learn from me, go off and teach other people. That's really cool.
Right.
But the proudest moment is I have a one person who's created the website, and I can kind of look it up while we talk here, but she has close to 20,000 page views. Close to 20,000 page views already, and I'm looking over here at Google Analytics, see if I can give you an exact number. And the reason I think this is so cool, hang on, I'm gonna call this up here, is the name of the website is miamei.com. miamei.com. miamei.com is the name of the website, and she has over 20,000 pages. Last month she had 750 unique, had 750 sessions, 700 users, 1,700 page views. Yeah, so what? It's not a big number, but here's what's really cool. I'm looking at the numbers. I can be exact. It's more fun for me to be exact. 8,000 users, 8,500 sessions, 25,000 page views. 60% of that's organic traffic. This is my daughter, my 7-year-old daughter. Nice. And she started when she was 3 years old. She has been online for about 4 years, and and we lost the analytics. I had to reinstall it, so she's done better now, but it's not that important. 8,000 people have come to her website, and they've looked at 25,000 pages. 2,600 have come directly. 2,500 have come via organic search to a 7-year-old site. Now, what I'm headed here is when she goes to college, and she's 18 years old, goes off to college, she will already have been online for 15 years. Nobody will ever be able to touch that. Right.
I think that's one of the things about being prepared nowadays. It's having skills like that is much more important than learning, like kind of yet another, like history fact that like you can look up on Wikipedia.
Right. But she will have been there for a very long time. I mean, she will have this online presence for 15 years. She's only 18 years old. When you go off to college, what have you been doing with your life? Well, I've been creating blogs for the last 15 years. What? So anyway, I'm proud of my daughter. My proudest moments, that's a content marketing proud. I'm proud of my kids, but that has nothing to do with content marketing. So.
No, it definitely does. I mean, it's an example. I mean, there's very few gurus who can say that they've taught somebody who's, like 3 years old to blog for that many years.
See, my second oldest son, he doesn't blog. He doesn't care anything about that, but he's in the 3rd year of his PhD program. He's getting his PhD in molecular exercise physiology. How the body works when you exercise on a molecular level. He's in the 3rd year of his PhD program in his second language. And so he's getting this PhD in his second language. His first language is Japanese. His second language is English. Now he's achieved that level. But the way he got into graduate school was he had to apply. And so I taught him how to use the search engines. I taught him how to create his resume so that when he applied for graduate school, we knew what words people were looking for. So the graduate professors were able to find him because he used good search engine optimization principles in his resume and in his application. And he said, that's how I got found, Papa, because I used those things you taught me. I put them in my resume and my applications, and sure enough, they found me, and they accepted me into master's program, and now he's in his PhD program. So content marketing taught me how to teach him how to do that in a different real world scenario, and now he's off getting a PhD.
That's awesome.
And so, those kinds of things, it's very translatable. The things we learn online are translatable into the real world. So there we go. I'm sorry. Those are very long answers.
No problem. No, that's a great answer. So, but in terms of for yourself though, like going back to, so what does that next level of success look like for you?
Ah, man. You see, I saw these questions and I thought I'd be able to answer them, but when the time comes, I don't know the answer. And so, what we're doing is that I've teamed up with a buddy here. You've met him, Sunil, and so we decided to create a 1-year program. We're calling it Influencer Academy. So people want to know how to be an influencer. You know, look at you, Bill. Look at all the people who ask you questions. How did you do that? And so I decided to put together a course, you know, and give people a year. Say, let's start here. Let's do this for the next year. If you just shut up and do what I tell you, at the end of this year, you're going to see probably this many organic visitors, depending on how big your market is. You're going to see you're going to see this many real, honest to goodness Twitter followers who actually come to your website. This stuns me that I can get people off of Twitter and come to the forum and spend 3 to 4 minutes each. They don't spend that much time on Twitter, but they'll leave Twitter and come to my forum and do that. So I'm going to teach people how to do that. I can get people off of LinkedIn. They will leave LinkedIn, come to my website, they'll join the forum, and then they'll be there, and then they'll spend time there, and then they'll engage in there. How do you do that? Well, I'm going to teach people how to do that. And we were talking about videos. So now people are hiring me to create videos. The reason they're doing this is because they found my YouTube channel. Who would have thought? I hate YouTube, but I still put them up there because you do that. And now they find me. So I'm going to teach people how to do that. And in our meetup, I run meetups. I have about 14,700 members. And people say, how do you do this? So I'm going to teach people how to build a physical following at a meetup to do that. And then, of course, the last thing people want, they want their own tribe. Well, I know how to do that. So I'm going to teach people how to do that. And so my goal of the next year is to break this down by the numbers, step by step, teach people how to do that. And so we have a target of, we're going to launch this in a couple of weeks. We have 11 students signed up for this. We have another 26 students who have applied, and we're trying to screen who it is we want to let in and who we don't want to let in. And so the next level is I want to create, you know, a small group of people and teach them step by step how to do this. And then once they've done it, I want to bring in another group of 20 people or 30 people. And then I want to bring in another group of 20 people or 30 people. So over the course of the year, we're going to have 50, 60, 80 people who have gone through this step by step and reproduced it in a no nonsense, no fluff, actually works manner. And then from that group, we're going to have people who, of course, will excel. People will drop out. We'll have people excel. And I want to build that into a kind of mastermind, you know, the whole mastermind concept. And so I want to be able to reproduce people who will then in turn do that for me. So I will spend a year creating more people. I don't want to say like me because that sounds too, you know, narcissistic. I want to be able to reproduce what I'm doing. And then have people be able to do that again on a much higher, not just reproduce their blogging success. I want people to be able to reproduce influencer status. And so, I know how to do that. And so that's the next level. So a year from now, I hope there's 5 or 6 people who say, okay, Bill, just stop talking and leave it to us from now on. Let's check in with you from time to time. I'm 60. I'll be 61 years old in about 3 weeks. So I don't want to jump up and down and yell at people the rest of my life. So that's, I guess the next level of success is to be able to reproduce myself in a discipleship kind of a manner.
That sounds great. And one of the things that I mentioned before was that with so much that you have going on as well, so how do you manage it? How do you get the different things done?
I don't. I'm not a good manager. And this will sound something, I don't know, but I make no apologies for being an exceedingly hard worker. And I do. I work really hard. And I could go back and tell stories. It'd be too long. We've already gone long. But I'm also, I don't know what the word is. It's not productive, but you know, I can get a lot done in a very little bit of time. You know, something that might take people 2 or 3 hours to do, I can do in 20 minutes, just because I'll put my head down and I'll make it work. And I can maintain that for a very long time. And so I have a work capacity is the word I was looking for. You know, I think I have a high work capacity.
Hmm.
In other words, I'm able to get a lot done in a lot faster time than most people. There was a time when I was back, you know, when I started blogging way back in the beginning, 450 articles a month. You know how hard that is to do? That's 15 articles a day. I write 15
Right.
articles a day. Who can do that? Well, so I learned how to read and write at the same time.
Hmm.
You know, most people have to read, stop, think, digest, and then write, right? I don't have to do that. I can read, and while I'm reading, I can start writing. And so I'm very productive. I have a good work capacity, and right now I can get a lot done quickly. So I can wear different hats. But you should ask me this question: Have you found that anything suffers when you work at that pace? And the answer to that question is yes. You know, when you try to produce a lot, the quality does suffer. Of course it does.
Hmm.
But I was faced with the prospect of feeding my family.
Hmm.
And so if they're going to pay me to write this much, I'm going to write that much no matter what, because I want to feed my family.
Right.
You know, if I had it to do over again, if I had a salary and I was able to write at a slower pace and do deeper, I don't want to say quality versus, you know, crappy quality. I'll go deeper and you know, longer lasting, you know, more substantive for that matter.
Hmm.
And if I had to do over again, I wish I could have done it that way. Because a lot of the stuff I did was transient. You know, I would create it, it would perform, it would do well, but it wouldn't last a real long time.
Hmm.
And if you know, this is kind of what's the biggest lesson you've learned. Is kind of our last question you've got there.
Right.
You know, you have to pay the bills. So I did what I had to do to pay the bills.
Hmm.
You know, it might not have been my first choice of how to do things, but at the time I had to be productive and I had to get money in now. So, and the only way to do that was create a lot of traffic and get paid for that. I didn't have the luxury of building and thinking really long term.
Hmm.
And so now, you know, I have that luxury. The luxury is not the right word, but I can actually sit down and I can think and I can create 1 or 2 videos a week. These people said, I want to create these 2 or 3 videos a week, and that'll pay the bills. That's really cool. I like that. So I can think really hard. I can create a good Prezi. I can get my good cameras. I can sit there and I can do several takes, and I can focus on, you know, a higher quality, for lack of a better word. Because I don't think I ever put out junk. I never put out junk. It just wasn't my best stuff. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
I always knew I could do better.
You were just doing what you had to do just to, you know, get the job done and to feed your
To pay
family.
the bills. To pay the bills, yeah, that's right. And so I just did it the fastest way I could. I gave, you know, when you have a timeline, you do the best you can within that time. Right? And so that was the best quality I could put out in the time that I was permitted. And so it was a time limitation, not a desire limitation.
Mm.
And so I know people who are endlessly producing something good and never produce anything because they don't have a deadline. So I put self-imposed deadlines on me, and I put out the very best stuff I could in the self-imposed deadline, and I would call that my best stuff, given these constraints.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting part of what I find in my lessons studying creativity. People talk a lot about thinking outside the box and all that, but really often, like, having these constraints just kind of forces the drive for creativity. Like, in other words, you know, people tend to get more creative when they, you know, have these constraints. On the other hand, though, the challenge though is that they can't have too much pressure, otherwise that also kills creativity. So finding that balance, that you know, between, you know, just enough pressure that, you know, you have a deadline and stuff like that, but not so much that you feel rushed and all that, is like, seems to be the optimum kind of creating flow and creativity.
Well, see, I would err on the side of too much pressure, rather than err on the side of not enough. You know, the worst thing you could do, and we saw this with Cylinder when Obama gave him $600 million. The worst thing you could do is give people too much freedom, and then they just squander it. You know, Disney, you know, I'm a huge Disney fan. I got a 7-year-old daughter. Okay, so we love Disney. But Disney did his very, very best work when he was completely constrained. and they were pressed to their best, and they just were pressed beyond imagination for where they're going to get the next money so they could finally produce Snow White kind of a thing.
Right.
So err on the side of high pressure, and you'll get better results. And the people who don't produce results under ultra high pressure, they probably weren't going to anyway.
Well, thanks, Bill.
Okay, I'm sorry, John. I mean to wax
no problem.
Yeah,
I think this has been great. Definitely. I guess the thing is just letting folks know the best place to find you. I imagine it's probably the forum.
Oh yeah, come to the forum. Forum, FORUM, my name, Bill Belew, BELEW, BillBelew.com. Jump in there, ask questions. John will answer them for you. He loves to answer questions.
Yeah, I guess I probably should disclose that I've become a convertee and definitely have enjoyed being in the forum, and so definitely appreciate the folks who have been watching and learning the story about Bill. Again, if you want to learn more, we'll provide the links for his forum. And thanks again for your time. And this has been great. I've learned a lot, so I definitely appreciate that as for your forum.
All right, John. You have a good evening. I gotta go feed my daughter dinner. She's waiting. She's hungry. She's waiting.
Okay.
All right,
Sounds
we'll
good. Have a great dinner.
Bye.